This is Phil Monteleone, the book peddler, coming to you with another YouTube video. This video is going to be before I buy books, preliminary questions asked. So if you find value in this longer form content and you would like to, you're more than welcome to send a donation to the Buy Me a Coffee that's linked up. And I appreciate it all. Those who have donated, it all goes to my in-shop coffee fund. Of course, you can like and subscribe to the channel. And before I get started with this video, on the last one I did a giveaway. So I had you guys select what book you wanted me to review, and the clear winner was Book Row. And so thank you for your participation. And whoever I select out of this thing, I'm going to be sending a copy of The Last Bookseller by Goodman too. So, and I'll put my little bookmark in it. It was a great read. I did a past video on that. And quickly, before we pick a name, I am an affiliate with Biblio now. So if you don't win the book and would still like to purchase it, if you go through my link, I get a small percentage of the sale. So buy through that if you'd like. But anyways, I got my names in here, and Jordan's going to help me pick a name. And I'll be messaging you. So if there's no funny business going on, let's see what we got. So the winner is Joseph Berger, 9143. So Joseph, I'll be sending a message to you. I'll reach out and actually pick another name in case Joseph is, comatose somewhere. Let's see. Don't look.
I did it.
Toby Monteleone, my dog. No, I'm joking. John Vaughn 6601. So if Joseph doesn't win, John, it's yours. So all right, guys. So let's get on to the video, and thanks for playing along. Okay, guys. So let's get started with this video. I got my notes in front of me. I'm ready to roll. This video's preliminary questions that I ask before I go on a book pick. I thought this video will be valuable for people getting started in buying books for resale, getting into the trade, maybe even seasoned sellers out there could take some notes from it as well. And if you guys out there who are involved in this kind of business, feel free to leave your tips, because I'm always learning. I'm not perfect. This is just what I've gathered throughout the years of what's worked for me. Maybe it can work for you. So let's get started with how I approach these things. So I get a lot of calls to buy people's books, and 75 to 80% of the time now I say no. It's the current position I'm in, and most collections are not worth my time. My buddy Mook says not all books are created equal. Remember that. It's very true. Now, early on in my selling career, I was trying to buy everything I could. And that's not, there's always going to be another buy out there. Don't feel like no matter how special you think that collection is, there's always a better one that's coming right behind it. That's always been my experience. Save your money for another day. I also didn't know how to say no. So now I say no more often than not. So let's talk about sussing out the situation here. It's important to take into account that there are different types of sellers. Is this person contacting you a potential future source for more material consistently throughout the years? Are they a dealer? Doesn't necessarily be a book dealer, antique dealer, a picker. Most of the cases I deal with one-time sellers or two-time sellers. So they'll have a large quantity. Some have collected for many years. Some have inherited a collection. Some bought a property that had books on it. They need them removed. Some are working on behalf of collectors to purge their material for them. All of these can affect the approach and where it goes. So we just got to get our foot in the door and figure out if it's worth putting our foot in the door. So let's start with these questions. These questions will be followed up with little tips and ideas to put in your head of what I've experienced. It'll bleed into secondary questions as well concerning different types of collections and mostly the size of a collection. We're dealing with large bulk buys, hundreds, if not thousands of books. So let's see here.
The main question I ask, it doesn't have to be the first question by any means, um, but it's to send me pictures. If somebody like contacts me on Facebook, uh, they're more likely have the ability to send a picture through Facebook, and I'll ask for it. Um, Again, this doesn't have to be the first question, but this will quickly determine whether or not it's worth the time. I asked them to send pictures of the shelves with the spines. I just need a sample. I need an idea of what I'm looking at. I can also kind of gauge the setting and if these books look like they've been well kept. So I let the seller know that we're going to be saving each other some time if they're able to send me some pictures. Not everybody can do this. Not everybody's capable of doing it. Not everybody wants to do it. So let's ask these questions now. First one, how did they acquire the collection? Second one, what kind of books did you or did they collect? What kind of interests or genres are within the collection? How many would you estimate there to be in the collection? Now, most people overestimate the size of their collection, just to let you know. We need to gauge the condition. What kind of condition are these books in? How are they kept? A very important question. Have you had anyone over to buy from the collection yet? Now, if so, that's not a good sign. It usually means they're trying to pawn off less desirable material to you because someone came in before and they got the goods, and you don't want to get stuck with the junk. So if you can also gauge naturally during the conversation a little background of who owned the collection, you can kind of expect there to potentially be a certain quality. You can kind of almost gauge the quality. Like if they had a good occupation and had a good status in society, there's a likelihood that they bought nice collectible books, that they kept their books clean, maybe could collect some higher end stuff. It's a small example, nothing certain, but there are little tells that you can potentially pick up on based on the seller's background or where those books came from, who was the collector. Now, secondary, these next questions could be asked when you get your foot in the door. If everything works out, you like what you're hearing. So I'm going to go over some secondary questions. But I will caution you, I think it's very important not to exhaust the conversation on the phone. So that's where I have these secondary questions to ask when you get on the spot. One in particular. Now, if you like what you see, if you like the pictures you see, the answers you hear, set the date and time immediately. Don't let too much time pass. You want to get this deal done because things can change very quickly. So, in reiterating about exhausting a conversation, I can use this example. Some salespeople out there, they'll oversell. They don't know when to close or how to close. They just keep trying to sell. You have to close it at some point. The reverse can be true in this situation. You can talk your way out of a potential buy, okay? If you unnecessarily extend the conversation, just get the relevant information, okay? Some questions, as I'm about to go over as a third time, can be safer in person. The person on the other line may be saying to themselves, I just want these books gone. The 21 questions I've had enough of. Do you want them or not? Also, you could inadvertently bring awareness to your high level of interest, which we'll talk about interest later on. Your high level of interest and desirability. They may entertain other options now, and so I'll get into the interest as we go. Guys, if you're enjoying this video so far, hit the like button. If you think I should get a haircut, hit the like button. All right, let's keep going. So one of the first questions in dealing with the allotment, the size of the books that I'll ask is, are you looking to sell them all? Now, most of the time it's yes, they want them all gone. So that's a follow-up question to how many books are that they possess. Now, most of them want them all gone. Now, to step out of the video a little bit and going a little farther in terms of you making your way to the location, if it's gone that far, If you've overestimated how good the collection you perceived it to initially be, and you're finding the vast majority not as desirable, this is when I would introduce the idea of cherry picking. I would not personally ask if you can cherry pick as one of your main questions. I'd avoid it at all costs. For one, it extends the conversation that we don't want to do and can lead to an undesirable result. Sometimes less is more. The less you say, the better off you'll probably be. So I would wait to go on site before asking this. Now, if you do ask this, if you're in this position of cherry picking, what I would suggest is for you to have other options in mind for the seller, because they're going to, in most cases, be hesitant because you're still leaving them with such a large an allotment of books and not even their best stuff that you're picking. So you want to provide them with options. This is where a relationship with maybe an Amazon seller or a free book up pickup person could come in handy, that they could take on the majority of the material. But remember, you got to leave a little honey in the pot for these people. They're not going to come to your ever beckoning call if you keep giving them your garbage, basically. So, be very selective and leave some meat on the bone for the next guy. That's my recommendation. If they want them all gone, they don't want to deal with other people, forget what I said about cherry picking. That's fine. I can take care of them. Just let the seller understand that your offer then is based on the better material. And then it is up to you to figure out what to do with the rest, whether that's donating or running dollar sales or bulking up listings or a paper mill. That's a lot of work. Remember, you're providing a service of removal at that point. Okay, guys? They would have to pay somebody to move those books. So make sure it's worth your time and the margins make it worth it for you. Another little tidbit, you must gauge if the seller is actually ready to sell. There's a certain percentage of people that are not ready. Maybe a loved one has passed away and they're having a hard time parting with their books. If this is the case, you're probably not going to want to make the trip. Just let them know when they're ready, you would be interested, and to contact you in the future, or if they wouldn't mind, if you reach out a month from now or something. I'm sure they won't mind. They're starting to try to get the ball rolling. Okay, sometimes you gotta show a little bit of patience. So let's see. Now back to interest level. Do not let your interest become too apparent. If your interest is very high and you're radiating through the phone of how excited they can hear it in your voice or see it in your eyes, you're brimming over the top with excitement, they can most likely begin to then overvalue their collection. And now you're putting yourself in a pickle, okay? And if they haven't already started trying to look up books, which is one of the most annoying things you'll ever have to deal with, is when people are looking up their own books. I don't fault them. It's just a very annoying element to have to break through, basically. You could, though, create your own competition from the seller if you're showing such high interest. So you may create your own competition by doing this. If you think there's great potential, just be matter of fact and simply say, well, it sounds like you have an interesting collection. I'd be interested, willing to check it out. Also, what if you get the seller excited, you're excited, and you show up and it's actually less of what you thought? It's bunk. And or they want to keep what they perceive to be better books now. I mean, there's so many different variables that can happen. So remain grounded. You can be excited, but contain it a little bit, okay? Because you're doing yourself a disservice if you're too open, So this is something that I've had to deal with in the past. Now, speaking on competition, when it comes to book pick, the one thing you want to avoid is competition. Okay, if you have the feeling that they're looking for a quote on their collection, I recommend you do not give a quote. I have never successfully, that has never worked out for me in the past. Every time I've done this, it hasn't worked out for me, and I've never gotten the buy. So it's of the utmost importance that they're a motivated seller. They need them or want them gone today. However way you decide to work the deal, whether that's coming back in a certain time frame to continue to remove material, they have to be motivated to sell, or you're wasting your time in giving them a number to work off of. You don't want to do that. You're a bookseller. You're in business. You've gotten to this point from the work you've been doing. Don't undervalue yourself. People pay money to get quotes and to figure out what to do with their material. You don't have to give away free information. Okay. Now I break some of my rules because I'm a little bit of a softie, but it's situational. So another thing is I try to be flexible with people, but do not let anybody steer your ship. Okay. I've done this before. It can work out to small extents, but you really can't let the seller steer the ship. People will take advantage of this situation, whether they know they're doing it or not. You have to ultimately be the captain here. And there's no problem with asserting yourself in a respectful way and letting the party know your needs. You are the one taking the risk, remember, and providing this service. Do not be pressured to buy from anybody. Any buy you don't want to make. Don't get pressured into it. Don't get hung up on how special you believe a collection to be. There's always going to be a better one. You're opening yourself up to being manipulated emotionally and financially. When you get used to walking away from a deal, it gets easier and easier to do. Save the money in your pocket. It's better for future deals. You can go book poor if you find yourself being pressured and making a buy that you shouldn't have made. Books generally take longer to sell than most things. This has to work out for you just as much as it has to work out for them. I had somebody, I'll give you a brief story on ship steering. I had somebody that I had bought from throughout the years, right? And, I would appease them and sometimes pay up a little bit, which is okay to pay to play a little bit if it's going to be a relationship that continues forward. So I would do that a little bit to kind of appease them. Well, they started to overvalue their material. They would also get into these weird pressure situations where they would say they would allot a bunch of books together. Half of it was garbage. The other half was pretty good. And ask for too high of a number. And I would say, not interested, not interested, not interested. Time and time again, this would happen. And they started getting offended by this. Why isn't he buying my books now? And in each case, I would not even give an offer on the set, on the collection. I wouldn't do it, and I don't recommend you do it either, because some people are very sensitive individuals. And so what ended up happening was he had done this again. He offered me an allotment of books, and there was only one set I wanted, which he had offered me individually in the past. And I said I was only interested in that set. Well, he asked for what I would be willing to pay for them. I gave my answer. He was overly sensitive. He was offended by it. And then he wrote me a letter like a little 15-year-old girl and severed the relationship. It was quite a pathetic thing to actually be a part of. And I couldn't believe it happened. But you are dealing with people's sensitivities to their material. So be aware of that. And don't make the offer. Or at least I would recommend think about it before this situation happens to you. So, hey guys, third wardrobe change. I'm having issues with the camera. Next day, let's close out this video. I hope that last example was sufficient enough when I'm talking about steering your own ship. This individual, I gave him the helm to the ship, basically. And he slowly crept towards the iceberg. He had no business being at the helm. He should have been washing the deck, if anything. Nobody knows your business better than you and your margins and how you operate. So early on, try to set those boundaries. I know you're trying to be, you'll try to be maybe accommodating towards the seller. You don't want to miss out on a sale either, and but it can shoot you in the foot at the end of the day. So I got to take my blame as well, but at the same time, this is a little bit of a learning process too. It's the first time something like that happened, and so I definitely say when you're buying, you need to really steer the deal. You know your business better than anybody. Okay, don't let anybody else tell you what that is, because they're really clueless in the scheme of things. Now, the last thing I would say is there is no need to educate the seller beforehand, during. Don't do it. It's equivalent to showing such a high interest level in material. You have the potential to really ruin your potential buy. So there is no need for it. If they're very curious seller or whatever, you really, it's up to you if you want to answer some questions and whatnot. I don't mind most of the time, but that in itself just can get you in the weeds, and you're there to buy, and that's that. So stay out of the weeds. That's all. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Let's just recap real quick. I have here, before I go on a big book buy, these are the questions I asked. The conversation doesn't have to be more than 5-10 minutes. I ask, power's going out. I try to acquire photos. I gauge the size of the collection, the motivation of the seller. I gauge the condition they've been kept in. I find out if other dealers or collectors have been there before you. Competition's a sin when you're buying. I set a date and time quickly. The other things are, I try to restrain my excitement and interest. I steer the ship. Do not feel the need to educate the seller, and do not give a quote beforehand or during. Now, I will say this. Most of these sellers are at your mercy, especially the one-off ones. They really don't know what they have. They don't know what they should be asking for the books. And I will say, the longer you do this, you can really just get a sample size of material, and you can have an idea of what you're probably going to offer, and it's probably going to be 90% of the time pretty close, unless if there's any surprises that weren't in the sampling. So those are my tips for you guys. Don't worry about it. You're going to be fine out there. I thought that these might be good questions to think about, to maybe get you started, to see if it's worth getting your foot in the door of a seller. And if you guys out there have any tips or questions that you ask that could be a benefit, put them in the comments. It'd be really helpful, I'm sure, for a lot of people out there. And you're gonna be fine. It's a fun business. Just keep some of these things in mind, and I think it can help you greatly. Guys, I hope you find the holy grail out there. And don't forget about your old book peddler when you do. Like and subscribe if you have it. Till next time, I'll see you guys.